guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Okay, welcome back everyone to Anonymous Bites back. A shorter episode, but we will give you some updates about the Commander X situation. We're going to talk about Craig Murray, about other things going on surrounding arrested Anons and Anons losing their GoFundMes and things. So we have our special guest Deepa Driver in, and she knows a lot about the Craig Murray case, and she's going to help us and she's going to explain a lot about it tonight. So thank you for being with us.
Oh, your sound's gone.
Yeah.
Gone, Deepa. I'm not sure what happened.
That's strange, your sound's gone, Deepa.
Okay. Well, weird. If you guys are unfamiliar with Deepa Driver, I don't know why you would be at this point if you're watching this show. But
You guys hear me now?
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
We can.
I
Okay.
don't know what happened there.
Hey, so maybe you
just
just...
good to see you, Deepa. You really are one of my favorite people on the planet.
Hey, that's nice. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and again, I know it was a while ago, but amazing job on the Whistleblow Fest.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
event
that
was
was fun.
that event was so awesome.
Oh, thank you. I think it was it was just so amazing, given that everything that was done at it was done without spending a penny. It was all people doing it because they are being generous and kind. And
Well,
Yeah,
that
I-
campfire was so nice. It was like I don't know, like the convalescent home for wayward activists or something like that. It was so nice.
yeah, that was. I cannot believe somebody has the the imagination and the intelligence and the texture to be able to create things like that. I don't have it, but unfortunately, I didn't get to spend any time there, because by the time we finished, it was like I had been going for about 25 hours continuous, and I just crashed out.
I mean, for legal reasons, I'm not sure if it would have been a fantastic idea for you to have been in that chat room. But
No.
you know,
Really? Okay. I'm glad I wasn't there then. My nose clean.
there were some heavy hitters in that room that I'm sure that had it been public, there would have been a lot more eyes on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people that have probably been advised not to be in the same physical space as each other or in the same digital space as each other. And even though nobody was doing anything wrong, it really felt like getting away with something. It really did. I think that made it a little bit more special. I don't know.
For like hours too.
Yeah, you guys were there forever. You just stayed there. Like I got so tired at some point. I just had to sleep. But you guys were there probably like all night.
I fell out for like 4 hours when it first got. It had been running for about, because it started at midnight my time, so I fell out at like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning and woke back up around 7 or 7:30 and then just stayed with it, delirious and silly.
Well, I was there already a bit at like 8:30, but it was just me and Greg Hoosh, to be honest. There was no one yet back then. But we just walking around and checking it out. But yeah, at night, like everyone showed up, like all yeah, it was great actually. Yeah.
I think the person who created it is just somebody super special.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to that guy.
Yeah, shout
Yeah.
out to.
Shout out. Shit fuckery.
And that person actually helped out with a lot of other things in terms of the planning of the festival. So huge credit.
What killed me was the beret at the jaunty angle, which I did not notice until the following day. But I was like, if there is anything more stereotypically French than a beret at a jaunty angle, it's clapping twice when you're pleased at something. And that happened a couple of times too. I was like, my God, all of my stereotypes about French people have been fully confirmed. And I guess I can leave the world happy now. I don't know. Deepa, Craig Murray he's been sentenced. He's trying to appeal. The first appeal was originally denied, and now they're pushing back. Do I have that right?
So he was sentenced to 8 months in prison, which is very, very unusual for a contempt of court case. So that itself is really strange because it doesn't usually happen to a journalist. Not only that, what's really interesting is they denied his suggestion of doing community service, saying that he was too ill to do that because of, Craig's got these really serious medical complications. He's not a well man, and he offered to do part of his sentence as community service. And they said, oh, no, we can't let you go and do that because there's health and safety risks and things like that, right? And they say, oh, yeah, we can't let you go and do that, but we're going to put you in prison for 8 months. And it's just completely bizarre. What's also really bizarre is the fact that one of the reasons why he's being treated so harshly is because apparently mainstream journalists sign up to IPSO and in codes of conduct, whereas Craig's just a blogger, only with over 90,000 followers, yeah, and an experienced expert. And of course, the third thing is this. I don't know if people who are watching are aware, but what he's been sentenced on relates to half of one charge, in effect, and it's in relation to something called jigsaw identification, where just like you would in pieces of the jigsaw, as you put various pieces together, you're able to identify who the person is, and the expectation is that if you're somebody who is a victim of sexual assault coming to trial, your identity is hidden, and or maybe even if you were somebody who was a mafia person who was coming to trial, your identity would be hidden. And if you were a protected witness, then the idea would be that journalists should not reveal your identity such that the public could potentially make out who you were. But in Craig's case, the interpretation of the word public has been limited in some ways to even a small portion of people, including somebody who works in the same office as you, somebody who stands outside your door, or the doorman who lets you in. If they were, or maybe a member of your family, were able to identify you, then apparently that's jigsaw identification, which is not the test that it seems to be under the law.
Well, and that's essentially what Murray's attorneys, legal team are arguing, is that based on what the blog says, based on Murray's own words, you would have to have had foreknowledge of the identity of the protected witnesses in order to assemble what Craig was saying. What the Scottish court has done, and you touched on it a little bit, is that they've changed the definition of what the public means, because I believe they tried to like run it as an experiment.
Oh yes, Craig's paid for some kind of I'm trying to remember the right word for it, market research organization to explore this. And actually, so there are a number of other people who have actually either disclosed the names directly or have identified them. Daddy Garavelli, for example, has provided much more information than Craig has. But what is also interesting is that the way in which Craig's case has been assessed means that sorry, there was a particular point I wanted to say, which is that a politician or your employer gets to decide who is or isn't a journalist, which means that some of the best journalists in the world who are not working for a mainstream media organization are apparently lesser journalists than those who may be. We know so many mainstream journalists who publish nonsense. We know so many mainstream journalists who have hacked into people's phones, who've done all kinds of really disturbing things. But apparently they because they subscribe to this code of conduct, they're apparently a higher standard of journalist or a higher caste of journalists than Craig is. I'm also amazed that in terms of Craig's case, the way in which he's been treated and the proportionality of the sentencing for somebody who's very seriously ill. This is the first time he's done this, and he didn't even identify anyone. So, given all these things, and within the judgment, there is reference to stuff which was not presented by the prosecution in the trial. So Craig hasn't even had an opportunity to defend himself against some of the accusations made about him in the judgment. And what happened, when was it, week before last, was that his appeal was heard. They declined the appeal, but they allowed him to take the appeal back to the Supreme Court. And
because from what I read, obviously I can't be there to cover the trial. They won't let me leave the country right now. Yeah, it still stings. It's been almost 2 years. I still haven't had a court case over that. I'm starting to get a little frustrated. But what I read was it was the same judge or judges that heard the initial case that denied the appeal or denied the appeal. So it's obviously it's got to go before different judges now. But that it was like standard practice for the same judge to have ruled on your case to be the one who makes the determination for the appeal. Do I have that right, or was that inconsistent?
Yeah, in this case, yes, it was Lady Dorian and the two judges who made the decision on the case. And it is, of course, Lady Dorian is also the same judge who has been involved in creating this new procedure for victims of or survivors of sexual assault, etc., for them to have a juryless trial. And for example, if Alex Salmond had had a juryless trial, we're not sure whether he would have been acquitted as clearly and openly as he was in the jury trial. So it is very, it's a very interesting way of, depressing way of shutting down anybody who might have a different opinion to yours about, if you have to go back to them to appeal, then you have to go back to them to get the permission to go to the next level of court. How fair is the process is worrying for ordinary people.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, it highlights a couple of different, clear secondary targets for going after Craig Murray. And you cannot decouple Craig's relationship with Julian Assange when we're talking about this case, and we also have to look at it as part of the broader attack on journalism and on truth and on the public's ability to have access to dissenting voices and opinions that are counter to the narrative. And this is something that is now global in its scope and reach and in its detrimental consequences.
Exactly, and it's a way of shutting down people who provide honest information. If in a case like this, you were the defendant, right, in say Alex Salmon's case, then there would be no way that any of the arguments from the defense could be put forward without there being risks of it being tainted as jigsaw identification, which means that the defendant could never get due process. That's not to say that you cannot, basically all I'm saying is that the defense case, it's difficult to report on it if you're a journalist. And yes, you might say, oh, if you were a better quality journalist, you would have reported on it. But actually, if you look at Craig's wife has provided a beautiful submission to the court when he went to appeal. And you should read that. It's only about 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs. And it's really interesting where she says he wouldn't even really reveal the information to her. So Craig's been extremely careful and very respectful. And to then be found in contempt of court and to be prevented from giving testimony in Julian Assange's, hearings in Spain, where a case is being brought against those who spied on Julian Assange, the espionage trial, which is currently ongoing in Spain. Craig had to surrender his passport and therefore couldn't participate in that trial in person. And it makes a big difference whether you can attend a trial in person or if you're dialed in, as we know from Julian's hearings. Connections don't work, and all of a sudden there is difficult.
Yeah, that is a very
So
good
I'm going to
point.
go ahead and pull up that letter that Craig's wife wrote, and I'll put it on screen because Deepa's right. It is excellent. So the open letter to Lady Dorian. My name is Nadira Murphy, wife of Craig Murray. On the 7th of June, Craig will be sent to prison per your decision under the law of contempt of court. Understand and fully support your decision of protecting sexual assault victims. However, I do not feel Craig has been judged fairly. Craig wouldn't even tell me the women's names or identities or ever foul-mouth them during the trial when I asked about it. Craig does protect and previously had directly helped many women who suffered abuse, including a few women's asylum seekers case without any payment. My country, Uzbekistan. He sourced British government funding as well as giving his own money for victims of domestic abuse in a hospital refuge in Samarkand. I'm saying that horribly, and I'm sorry. These were women who had attempted to burn themselves to death with kerosene. This is a local culture for abused women. I've been living with Craig for almost 2 decades now. I know him as a gentle soul, a helpful human being, a kind partner, and a loving dad to his 4 children. Having come from an abused background and then police state, I know exactly what trauma is, and your unfair decision is a form of power abuse, which brings back my own PTSD trauma from my own country from authorities. I gave birth recently with a 3-month-old baby now, have a 12-year-old son, and my work from home. Craig has been a helpful hand and the main income in the household. My children need their daddy, I need my partner. Him being under my watch, as his doctor stated, his conditions are pulmonary hypertension, APS, and atrial fibrillation, among other illnesses. I worry his health is not suitable for the prison, which you ignored and took away as basic human rights. Prison and hospitals are not suitable for this type of serious illness. I believe you are sending him to a deliberate death sentence, knowing and ignoring his health conditions. I urge you to reconsider the sentence and allow Craig to be at home with his children who need him. Sincerely, Nadira Murray.
Okay. Well, that's a very powerful letter. So I do have like a detailed question for you, Deepa. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but if anyone can, it's probably you. And that is that his defense stated that like part of the articles he wrote were written before there was an actual identity protection law in Scotland. That seems to be a recent law that these identities are protected, and his defense stated like a few of these articles were actually written before that law existed.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. I haven't seen that statement. If you put it in the chat, I'll have a quick look and see what I understand of it, and then come back to you later in the call.
Okay. No, I will.
I haven't heard that mentioned directly when I've spoken to Craig, so perhaps I've just missed it. I've just been very tired, so maybe that's what.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, it was in text. It was actually on his own blog. I got it. And they listed like the dates of when these articles were written, and then they listed the date of when this whole identity protection thing came into what was made a law in Scotland.
Do you mean rather than identity protection law? Do you mean the protection of the witnesses within the case, or do you actually
Yeah.
mean the law?
Yeah, I know of the witnesses in the case. So I'll list it in details. You guys discuss for. I'm going to find it for you then, because I don't want to make mistakes on this either. So.
Yeah, so Craig's case, I mean, I think firstly, Craig's case is about freedom of speech and the right judges to be able to cover trials effectively without being accused of contempt of court in order to carry out a political persecution, which of course Craig, given his long-standing support for the independence of Scotland and his fairly vocal commentary about Nicola Sturgeon, was in the limelight anyway. And then of course his exceptional covering of the Assange case, which again brought him in the crosshairs. I think these make a very big difference to whether this case implies some kind of political persecution as well, because if you can't shut him down, then if you shut Craig down, then essentially what you do is shut down one of the most prominent and visible supporters for Assange, one of the most prominent and visible supporters for the independence of Scotland. And
and you're helping to restrict further courtroom reporting as well. So all this stuff can take place without transparency and behind closed doors. So it's like, it's just tragic that they're using one of Julian's friends to do it, they're targeting the people who, advocated so strongly for him.
Yeah, and I think a number of people have been targeted who've been associated with Julian. And, those of us who are part of the Assange campaign have seen this happen time and again to loads of people. It is quite depressing, but I guess in a way the fact that we're here and talking about it is a sign that we too believe that if they, every time they try and mow the lawn, so to speak, 1,000 more go and come back and speak, and people like me who thought, oh, there's no point in me speaking because I'm not really one of the important people, also start speaking because we think that we need more voices to say this, important or otherwise.
Yeah.
Is that a real cigar or is that an electronic one? I can see. It's electronic, isn't it?
Oh, your mic's not working, Steve. It's an e-cig, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might need to reboot Steve. That's
No, he's like muted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't
I
see.
am muted. Yeah, no, it's an electronic cigarette. I bought my last pack of real cigarettes the day before the Capitol insurrection in Washington, D.C. I had gone, like, already making the decision to quit smoking. The girl that I'm hanging out with doesn't smoke at all either, and I'm sure that's weird, but I wanted to quit smoking anyway. And so, like, ran out of the vape juice crap in DC, bought a pack of cigarettes as a default, smoked about half of it and left them there, and I haven't bought a pack of cigarettes since. And I'm on this right now. I'll probably switch to something called a fume soon, which has no electronics in it and only gives you like this little cord that has different like plant-based and essential oil kind of material, like it'll be like cinnamon or lemon lavender, some crap like that, which I'm not all into. The only reason I have the cigar thing is because I wanted something that's tasted like tobacco, because I don't believe a grown man has any right to walk around smelling like a strawberry shortcake playset.
Oh,
But
shut up!
I'm serious. I'm
It smells
serious.
good though. It smells
Yo,
good
see,
though.
you
It
That's
don't
the
smells
thing.
disgusting. It smells vile. I think the e-cigs are worse for you than the normal cigarette.
I think
because
there's
of the
some
fact
that
they-
are. There's some that will give you popcorn lung that are based off of salt. This is not that kind. I actually did a bunch of research before I selected the e-cig that I was going to use to step down. And so far, I believe it's been working. I buy less and less of these a week now. And will fully transition into being a non-smoker. I honestly think that at this point, it just inhaling something and breathing it out has become a part of my life, and I really shouldn't do that with cannabis all day long. I promise I shouldn't. I should probably smoke a little bit more than I do because I've been pretty stressed lately and just not. I ignore all that shit when I'm under pressure and just don't, go at it. But man,
You can.
oh, her connection dropped.
Oh, I was gonna say you can inhale some Smarties.
That's on that.
What's up with the connections tonight?
Well, it's been monsoon all day here, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty spotty. Literally, the power came back just in time for the France-Germany game, like 2 seconds before kickoff. I was like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah. You're
thank you, Sky Gods."
finishing the match before being ready. Yeah. I was looking at the Craig Murray blog, but he deleted all his posts, and in the archive has a scheduled power outage. It's really nice again.
Well, that's the other thing that utility companies are doing now. Instead of spending any of the money to fix their crumbling infrastructure, they bonus out their top-level management, let it fall to pieces, and then planned scheduled outages around normally occurring weather patterns. Oh,
Yeah.
it might be windy. Guess your food spoils.
Okay, well, I'm just going to keep this question for next time then, because I can't find the exact words of it. So
She's
yeah.
got 4 bars. She's showing a good connection right now. But you can't find the specific language of the law.
No, because Craig Murray's blog is cleaned. It's entirely empty. It doesn't have it anymore, and the archive has a power outage. Scheduled power outage, it said. So we got a little bit unlucky with that. Well, we'll discuss it in the next episode. I mean, we have to cover Craig Murray a lot more in the coming weeks. So.
Yes, to answer.
Of course.
I
And
didn't
if-
mean on
if
the.
you'd like,
I didn't mean
Deepa,
on
we
the thing.
can-
I was just putting it in the chat for us to see later. Sorry.
Oh, on Twitter. Okay. I mean, we could show it now on stream if you want to.
Let me check the right one then. I just. Yeah, I'll find the right one and put it in the chat. This one I was
Okay,
just getting
cool.
to send this on.
Yeah, Deepa, you can send me anything. I'll just share it. It's okay. I'll share this tweet too.
Thank you.
Yeah, we run a very tight ship over here on Anonymous Bites Back.
It's almost as tight as the one we run on the Assange Vigils or Slow News Day. Just the professionalism runneth over.
Yeah.
I really am thinking about like shaved my entire face, getting a white power haircut, and showing up on camera with like product and stuff just to fool everybody. By white power haircut, I mean like high and tight on the sides of that little flop of hair that goes on top. That's what that was supposed to be the alt-right haircut for a while. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm talking about, though, right? You've seen it.
I do.
See this thing, yeah. Yeah,
You gotta show me a picture of this.
oh, it's like the Richard Spencer haircut.
Yeah.
I'm googling for Richard.
I swear to God, if you Google alt-right hairstyle, it comes up.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
there you go. I'm sharing one right now.
Put it up on the stream. Put it up.
This is seriously the silliest stuff. It is. But yeah, that's an alt-right haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an actual Nazi and complete piece of crap. But yeah, so they're like, anybody with Richard Spencer's haircut is automatically a Nazi. So I have friends who are comedians who specifically went out and got that haircut just to make fun of people.
Oh, this one is even
You
more
have some strange friends,
pronounced.
Steve.
Shout out to Sam Tripoli and his Richard Spencer haircut. Yes, I do, Deepa. I have incredibly weird friends. How could you end up being me with normal friends? if environment has any role to play in our development, yes. Yeah, I've always had weird friends, and I do believe that some of that did help, shape the character that I have become. But I love my friends because they still talk to me.
That's an achievement, is it?
Aww.
Okay, the last 5 years have been super weird, right? And with the accelerationism that has gone on behalf of the predator class, it's gotten a lot of people to lose friends over stupid political reasons and things of that nature. So they're like, anyone who's maintained a friend for more than 5 years has a good friend. Because there have certainly been any number of issues where manufactured confusion has come into play that have caused people to sever ties with loved ones, friends, people that they work with, all that kind of stuff. And to think of that as unintentional is naive. It really is.
There's been extreme polarization, especially in the U.S. Extreme, and it grabs people like in their personal lives, like. Such a, yeah, you're right.
Well, then, and it helps foster narrative management, especially where it comes to people who are trying to bring some truth into the conversation, who are trying to approach it from an apolitical or non-political perspective, because the immediate reaction to anything now, at least in the general public, is to try to stuff it into a political box. Oh, you support XYZ, therefore you must be this. Oh, you're standing up for this person, that must make you fill in the blank. And in reality, especially where Craig Murray is concerned, especially where Julian Assange is concerned, and now Commander X, and a number of other information activists, journalists, political prisoners throughout the world, that has the thing that made them political prisoners is almost always not political. It's because whatever party was holding the reins of power at the time, or the perceived frontmen for empire, took issue with it, made it political, and made that person a prisoner. And it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, because the human rights, like the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech, the freedom of education, even, like, and the freedom of peaceful assembly in public, those are not partisan issues. They apply to everyone. Like, everyone has the same universal human rights in that sense. And what we're really dealing with is an authoritarian movement that is restricting this, and a counter movement that is actually fighting for these human rights. And whatever political party we're talking about, yeah, they're choosing a side in this, but it happens on both the left and the right at this moment. So there isn't really a divide on that. I mean, if you look at the United States, for example, like, I do remember, like, the Berkeley free speech movement, right, in the 1960s and stuff. What happened to that now? Now it is like, ban these people from social media because they're saying stuff we don't like. Or they're being...
Well, and we've remarked on this before, but there's been a polar shift in who the perceived authoritarians are, who the authoritarians are on the ground, who the conspiracy community is, the quote-unquote conspiracy community. It used to only be, up until about 9/11 and a few years after, only dirty, long-haired, left-wing, pinko commies would tell you that the government spied on you, or was listening to your calls, or was doing nefarious things in foreign nations, and not exactly the arbiters of freedom and a force of good in the world. Used to only be the left that did that. And now in a post 9/11 world where 8 years of Obama and running away from the entire Bush administration has been part of the conservative culture, all of the conspiracy theories are now alt-right, Nazi, would fill in the blank. The one thing that both blaming the left wing of the late 60s through 9/11 and now the right wing have in common is that every single conspiracy theorist is secretly working for and on the payroll of Russia.
Oh, yeah.
It's so nakedly stupid.
Yeah, and in Russia they point to the other empire. It's just yeah. But also at some point it became completely normalized. This whole surveillance system. We somehow need like we used to say Big Brother, but it's actually like Big Daddy, right? We have to treat them as like.
No, that sounds wrong.
But it's true.
Sounds sus.
It's true because it acts like a daddy over you. It doesn't act like your brother or whatever, like trying to protect you or something. No. We have to look up to them like we are like children who don't know anything, and they're like our parents who needs to like manage everything for us. And like when we're falling out of line, we get like removed from social media. We get like so that's a completely different relationship we have now with these people. And that's like, we want to keep you safe. You can't get sick. You have to keep distance, so you will be very much better visible on our facial recognition cameras, right? Keep like your what is it, like 5 feet distance, so we can recognize your face better.
6 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet is what you need for facial recognition to be able to separate individual characteristics and map your eyes and shape of your ears.
Yeah, I mean, like we're not all technical.
When you have a mask on, for all the people that were like, well, I'm wearing a mask all day, every day anyway because of facial recognition. No, that's not how facial recognition works.
Yeah,
No.
you have to wear like full.
Yeah,
you
because
know, like Guy Fawkes masks.
yeah, because they can measure the distance between your eyes and your nose and your ears, etc. That's unique for everyone, and they can do it like that. And there's like all these different techniques. There is like this. It has so many different ways to recognize even the upper side of your face. It doesn't need.
Plus, there is
side.
weight gait measurement and weight gait tracking, so you can be identified by the way you walk. You can be identified by the pounds of pressure that your feet hit the pavement with. There are so many other ways outside of facial recognition for you to be identified. You carry around, most people, a surveillance device with you everywhere.
Yeah, and if all that fails, there's the good old, hey, can you go, you're talking to your little FBI or cop friend, hey, can you, see that person over there, dude with the weed pen and the red shirt, can you go be his friend?
Yeah.
Or weed pen. It's clearly a cigar. It's legal.
Oh, I know it is.
Deepa, are you still with us?
I am.
Okay.
I was just stuffing my face. Sorry.
Oh, I did have a question about that. Because when we talked last time, you talked about they were trying to like mess with banning protests, etc. in the UK, and they were saying it had to do with annoying protests or something. They literally said that. Like,
Yeah. A protest that if you cause annoyance to anybody as a result of a protest, well, what's the point of a protest if you don't cause annoyance to somebody?
Thank you. Thank you. That's the point.
is there any update on that, or is it like still going on? Is it like?
Well, I think it's coming back to Parliament sometime in July, is what I heard. I think they'll try and get it in over the summer break. Fortunately or unfortunately, this year nobody's going anywhere. We're not having a break.
No.
But I think they're trying to sneak it in some way. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's been the introduction yesterday through the Swiss referendum of more intrusive surveillance type stuff happening in Switzerland now, under the guise of COVID. So it's I think it's COVID and also anti-terror legislation that is coming in. So there's this introduction of the COVID-19 certificate, but also more powers to clamp down on terrorism, of course. And I think it was the side which was, campaigning against these laws came very close to winning, but it just was apparently, and I haven't followed it closely enough, but somebody who's quite informed about it said to me that the Swiss government have even on occasion, or rather they're being accused of manufacturing some of the claims that they've made. So there is a likelihood this will continue to be challenged. In Switzerland, there were two important things that came up for referendum yesterday. One was on climate and one was on this, and both were lost.
Yeah, well, I mean, and as well, in terms of, on the US side of things, they're really banking on a lot of kind of the terrorism rhetoric to really justify, the crackdown on cyber attacks, and which really translate into hacktivists, because let's face it, a lot of the quote unquote hacking groups that have been doing these hacks on infrastructure like the Colonial Pipeline, they just coincidentally happen to be freaking FBI agents. It's like one of the last things that X said before he got kidnapped was that in FireEye, the group that hacked Colonial Pipeline, he said that one of their members ran off with all the money that they made from the ransomware attack. And then after that, coincidentally, the government is able to recover what? Like over half of the money that they lost? It just... And they're probably not the ones that are going to get targeted. It's going to be hacktivists like, Commander X and other people around the world associated with Anonymous.
Yeah, and these false flags attempts are used for that. Go ahead, Deepa. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I just think it was quite, I don't know, I guess not unbelievable, but it was just suddenly it just happened so quickly. The way they first went and tried to, get him out, and then suddenly they managed to abduct him. Then said, was it you, Steve, who said that you thought that nothing would happen for 48 hours or thereabouts? And then within a very short period of time, and they're always complaining about lack of resources for everything else, they managed to find the right resources to be able to take him to the US and charge him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and when I said we won't really know anything for 48 hours, it's because they simply don't hold court on the weekend. I thought we would get a little bit more out of what came from yesterday's video conference, but that didn't go through, and now there was a different court date. There was supposed to be they stopped the video conference, which was just supposed to be in front of the Alameda County magistrate. Now the U.S. Marshals are involved. Now there are a couple of articles out and through different mainstream outlets that mention nothing about asylum, that only speak to the 2011 DDoS charge that stems out of my home county right now, Santa Cruz.
Can I ask you a question about that? When we were last on, I was on I think it was Anonymous, or maybe it was yours, Steve, with Commander X, and I thought we were told that he had asylum.
Yes.
In Mexico. So, isn't there supposed to be a process to revoke asylum, or is everybody trying to ape Lenin Moreno?
That's I mean, that's kind of the conclusion that we're forced to come to on this one. Because, yes, political asylum and refugee status have been violated. I mean, X was on a stream with us showing us his green card, which was silly, but it happened, you know.
When you say green card, you mean his Mexican equivalent, or?
Yes, his
Okay.
like his it well it's his it shows that he's in the country legally as an immigrant. It's his immigrant
But
visa essentially.
right, in which case, I mean, I just find it interesting because I thought Mexico had AMLO, who was a kind of left-wing president. How does it happen?
The same way that I would assume, and I can't like I want to make it perfectly clear that what I'm about to say right now is 100% speculation. I do not have any information about how this process happened, nor have I seen any paperwork on it. So I'm going to speculate. But if I had to speculate, I would guess the same way that that both pressure and favors were applied to Lenin Moreno in order to get him to revoke Julian's citizenship behind closed doors in the dark with zero arbitration or due process. And that as a result of that, and what we saw with Julian Assange was a well-funded, well-orchestrated effort to kidnap and traffic a human being. In the case of Lenin Moreno, initially a $4.2 billion loan from the IMF was promised and given. Kamala Harris in Mexico the very day that X is kidnapped, but well announced, well publicized state visit. So I mean, really, who's to say that part of what whatever conversations took place before her visit weren't an equal application of coercion and favor to AMLO's government in order to overturn a hacktivist that, let's be honest, did spend about a decade thumbing his nose at the FBI while he was evading capture.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the timing with a couple of stuff lines up as well. Like, this is, for a while when he got to Mexico, he was in pretty bad health. And, at one point, we thought that on Slow News Day that we would be giving Commander X his last interview. And,
Well, that's what he thought.
yeah, that's what he thought, and that's what we thought too at the time.
Yeah.
But then a couple months later, this interview that we thought was going to be his last one was in January, and then a couple of months later, he comes back up in not the greatest of health, but in much better health, and not only is he wanting to do his show, but he's also wanting to talk about Julian Assange. His second to last show was about Julian Assange with me, Misty, Kendra, and Nat. And then and he also one of his big things he made a point of when he came back was to help out with the Freedom Camp, the homeless encampment in Santa Cruz, and he helped Keith McHenry get the Freedom Camp Wi-Fi so they could broadcast from that encampment. So, and then it also lines up with the Kamala Harris visit to Mexico as well. So, I mean, again, this is still speculation, but like, there's just a couple of stuff timing-wise, specific with regards to, X getting back into kind of the activism and reporting sphere that really lines up.
Yeah, Keith texted me this morning telling me not to come to Santa Cruz, like, in the capacity that I would to volunteer with Food Not Bombs or hang out with him for a minute. He's like, yeah, dude, no, we're pretty hot right now. Maybe don't.
Can I just say, I mean, the first time I met Commander X, I was on the show, and I was he's he has such an amazingly flamboyant personality. He just kind of, it's like, goes at you with the verbal equivalent of a machine gun. And
That's so true. The signature X 3 hour answer to any question. Yeah.
yeah, but also the kind of power in those answers is just amazing. I just wanted to kind of send solidarity, but from here across the pond, but also to say that um, there's a, I guess, it's there's a lot of really negative stuff happening around us, and it's really easy to kind of feel really quite stressed and anxious about it. And I think it's nice to have places like this where we can talk. And so thank you to all of you for organizing, and for, because I don't think I would have ever known anything about Anonymous if I hadn't kind of been invited onto this. And I remember the first time trying to ask you guys for your name, and then it just struck me, oh, they call themselves Anonymous. Obviously, they're not going to tell you their names, but it's just kind of, yeah. So thanks for educating me along the way. And I'm gonna have to drop off in a bit because I have to wake up at 5 to do some stuff. But
I know it's late where you are.
Yeah, that's smart.
We just appreciate the updates on Craig Murray for sure. I mean, it's necessary we give attention to that.
we need some solidarity in the next 3 weeks with Craig, because it's in the next 3 weeks that, he's out of jail for another few weeks, and this appeal in terms of the Supreme Court appeal is being considered, and it'd be really nice if more people got to know about him, tweeted about him, wrote about Craig's case. And also, I think it must be very, very lonely for Craig at this time. I know there are lots of good people who are rallying around him, but also, I guess, lots of people who might have otherwise liked to be in touch with him kind of moving away. So I can pass on, Steve and Mark and Gloria, I can pass on your solidarity from Anonymous and from Slow News Day, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And if it like any platform that we have is always open and available to Craig or anyone who wants to speak on Craig's behalf about this. Like
Let's plan something specially for Craig. Either I'll come on myself, or I'm not sure Craig can come at this point in time because of the way his circumstances are.
Yeah, and that makes absolute sense. But I wanted to just make sure that.
I'll pass on the request, and you should also contact him. So if he wants to come on, he can. Just so that I'll. I mean, not that I'm the conduit for it or anything, but I can send him drop him a line. You know how terrible Craig is for Deepa, but I'm sure he'd be glad for the solidarity at this time.
But yeah, no, please extend our support and our solidarity.
Yeah.
I'll be attached to the Home Run for Julian tour for the remainder of the
how's that going?
And
I heard the event was amazing. I saw the event with Roger Waters talking to. That was great. How are the other things? I heard Aaron Mate was particularly good at the event that you had with him and Chris Hedges.
That New York event was so excellently organized and put together, and it's a matter of resources and connections, and those are all there in New York and DC. We're slowly establishing a similar thing and network throughout the rest of the country. So the events have all been different based on who's been able to organize and what resources were available at the time. Which is cool because you get to see like every level of activism, and you get to see different approaches from different organizers. And
Can I
the
just make a shout out to Anne Batista who organized that amazing event in Milwaukee? So
yes,
big
yeah,
push.
no,
Shout out.
Anne is
Woo-hoo.
incredible. She is, and she's been integral in helping to plan a lot of this too. And I know that they're going to be in Milwaukee this weekend. I think it's
Mhm.
this weekend.
Oh,
Chicago
okay.
is the Chicago event is in 2 days. Well, 2 days from in the U.S. Um, so I don't. It's so Thursday. So maybe Friday or Saturday. Milwaukee, and then on the I know they do Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then on the 23rd of June in Denver is when I pick up the tour. I'll be filming all of the events that I go to and putting that out as an accompanying documentary after the tour, in the hope that it will have value for educational and motivational purposes. Um,
Yeah.
the
Have you
San
seen
Francisco.
this?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I spoke over you. Please
Yeah,
proceed.
I know that there's a couple of really special things planned for the San Francisco and Oakland events too, and that's going to include a live call-in from Mumia Abu Jamal,
Oh,
as
yeah. Yes.
well as
Yes.
Ellsberg is going to call in, and I think Chomsky's going to call
Who's John Cheese?
in. No, I'm sorry, Noam Chomsky.
Chomsky. Sorry, I thought you said John Cheese.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, but I'd love to meet him. And what were you going to say? Because I do know you're short on time, and you need to.
I can't remember. You know what? I just keep saying 5 minutes more and I'm going to go to bed. But every time you say something, I want to listen to the next bit. And I've been. So, yeah, I better go. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, shall we organize something specifically on Craig and we get somebody to talk about it? Maybe Mohammed El Mazi, who understands the case really well.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
he's great. And
Love him.
also, there's another guy. He runs the Jaggy blog, and I think some of the things he said about the case is really good. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
we
no,
will organize.
happy to help organize that. And then we certainly do need to drum up more support and more eyes on the case for Craig Murray, because again, what it really comes down to is they're using Craig to further destroy journalism, especially independent journalism. And
Absolutely.
I guarantee you more people read Craig Murray than they do any routine newspaper in Scotland.
Yeah,
But I
he's
don't think
known
it's
as the
about
most.
reading Craig. Sorry, Mark. I was just going to say, I don't think it's about reading Craig as much as being able to understand so much more about how the world really works from people like Craig than from reading The Guardian or reading The Times or reading The Telegraph, where you learn jack shit about how the world works. Sorry, Mark, you were.
Well, he was mentioned as the most popular blogger in Scotland, right? That's just what I wanted to say real quick. I'm not sure why. I didn't know about that though, but it was mentioned in the text. So, yeah.
Take care, guys. Bye. Good night.
Oh, take
Bye.
care, Deepa.
We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you for your time. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming through. Much
Thank
love.
you. Thank you.
Deepa.
Aww.
I love that woman.
I know, me too. I feel like talking to her is like talking to Juan, where like every time you come out of a conversation, you just feel better.
Yep. Even if it's about horrific shit.
Yeah.
Well, she has just a calm way of explaining things, right? So yeah, she's easy to talk to in that sense.
Well, what it is it's a very rational way of explaining things, and so often, especially on independent media news broadcasts, what drives the content is rage and overly emoting your way through it. And she is just so not that, and she's so soft-spoken that you kind of got to lean in for it. But everything that she has to say um, has significant value and is always informative. And it's just I don't know, it's a completely different approach, I think, than what most people see, from an independent newscast.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously these things are going to cause a lot of emotions with people. So yeah, and then
Myself included.
yeah, of course. Well, that's okay. I mean, if people actually realize what's going on, like how fast we are losing our rights and how fast this is all happening, yeah. If you like really think about it, you're supposed to be emotional.
Yeah, man. If y'all knew everything that the government did, you'd want to call them a bunch of cunts too.
Hey, honestly, if it was just the government, we could easily fix it. But I think this is much worse.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, it's people behind these governments.
We've moved beyond. I mean, we've really ultimately already moved beyond government, except for it still being used as the arbiter for state violence. But the people who manipulate global economies and write the rules by which they operate have no allegiance to any state.
No,
there's no patriotism among the predator class. That's just something they have to sell you to get you to buy into it so that you don't go looking for them.
Yeah, and so I hate to use like the Donald Trump example, but it should have been visible for everyone the second he was removed from social media.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you talk about the president.
You do not have to hate to use Trump as an example. Man, that kind of qualifier shouldn't even have to exist anymore. It's so fucking ridiculous. It's so juvenile and deliberately divisive to have to make somebody qualify. Like, I'm not saying this because I support.
I agree with that, but yeah, like literally, that's the first thing they're going to say. Like, oh, this is a Trump supporting show or whatever, right? But that's not the point. It's just you're talking about the president of a country gets removed from a social media platform in that country where he is the president of. Like, then you know that the power is no longer in the White House at that point. It is with some kind of establishment that controls like literally the narrative around the world. Like a few big social media, they are part of like this big machine that is like influencing all the people all over the world. What is it like? Facebook has 2 billion users. YouTube has about the same amount. Well, and Twitter is pretty big too. It has hundreds of millions of active users every day. Like, they're far bigger than just the United States, and yeah, like the power is no longer at politicians. They're like just like actors, like a Broadway play at this point. I feel personally. Yeah. Wish it was different, but. Not like that. If it was just the government, you would protest at the White House. You would like gather 1 million people together, like, and you would like protest at the White House or something, and you would make it like, and then the government would be so impressed with you that everything would change. But yeah, the power is not with them. You have to actually go to Silicon Valley or something to change something.
Yes. Invigorate the masses, people. I'll sound louder on July 3rd, but yes, let's do this. Fucking come on, you cunts.
I want to do something special for Julie and Joe in July. His birthday.
It's the big 50. He's turning 50, you know.
Yeah.
That's half a century. Like, oh man. I hate that. It's fucking, not even just Julian, like my heart hurts for all these people that have to suffer through all this shit. Like,
well, he already lost the best years of his life locked up, right? I mean,
yeah.
This is like 10 years now almost. Like in the embassy and then in jail. I think we're at 10 years, right? I mean,
We have to be 10 years or more at this point. I mean,
isn't that insane? That is like this happened for 10 years in a row and it's not stopped in any way. It's like,
yeah. And like when you put it, besides the implications of his case for press freedoms, like when you put his treatment in context of the greater treatment of people under targeting by the government, under such an oppressive prison system, like 10 years is almost, hate to say it, but small compared to something like Mumia, who's still, bro, Steve's first protest was a free Mumia protest, and he's still in prison. I mean, like, think of that.
yeah.
That was almost 30 years ago, by the way.
30 years ago. And that
That
guy's
the protest for Mumia that I went to in Indianapolis was 92. That was the first protest that I went to. One of my best friends growing up, his mom was, I don't know if she was like necessarily originally related to or just fucked with, or the Move crew in Philly.
Oh.
That was Snap's mom. And so she was an advocate not just for Mumia, but for all of the Move victims and people who got incarcerated after that massacre. So I was like the white kid that knew about the Philly bombing like right after it happened.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, big up Snap's mom. Thanks for
I'm not
educating our boy
gonna
Steve.
say her name on camera, but
I know, I didn't expect you to. Second that, but yeah. Shout out Snap's mom for educating Steve so he can educate others.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. And like all beyond Mumia, all the other Black Panthers that are still locked up to this day, all targeted individuals. It just,
Yeah. So I'm not even sure if like more people have been waking up to all of this, or that it actually became less because of the whole social media getting like completely controlled. I don't know. Like I don't have a good view about it anymore. I know there was a huge wake up thing around the whole 9/11 thing, and everything went super fast. And then it happened again, like during Occupy, with the whole banking collapse, and then needing this huge bailout and scamming everyone. It was another huge wake up thing.
yeah.
Now I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wish we could bring back that kind of Occupy style global movement. I mean, yeah. Like, I don't know what non-co-opted global massive movement we have going at this point. It's like,
No, I was hoping to say anonymous, but we're getting totally co-opted. So, yeah.
yeah,
this
but I
is-
mean, we can't comment on that because we're not the real anonymous, Luby.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we are, but we are not this. We're not super anonymous. But yeah, you're right.
I got a cape.
Yeah. No.
Got a cape.
As soon as you become a threat, you get co-opted. Whatever. Like, I think we still have legit people around us. At least we try.
100%.
Oh, for sure. That's why we're still in this fight. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, I don't know. There's so much shit that every once in a while I try to look on the bright side. And with Anonymous, it's like, of course they would co-opt it because that's I mean, it still is. That's something that's like genuinely amazing and powerful. So of course the predator class and the powers that be would want to use that to their advantage because it's because if they're not trying to use it, then it's going to be their biggest threat.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to see. I mean, that's why I try to stay optimistic about like youth activism and stuff, because like that's something that's very clearly co-opted. And you know, it's I don't know, like it's a good sign that they see you and that they see you as a threat, and that they kind of like have to try and co-opt you, even though the actual co-option itself sucks.
Yeah, well, there will always be activists standing up for human rights, and there will always be hacktivists who use anonymity, right, to stay safe, because, yeah, otherwise you just get arrested same day, so it doesn't make sense. Yeah, but what they're co-opting is more like the media voice, I think, of Anonymous. It's not so much Anonymous, they're just hijacking the media voice. They have the connections to the media, and the media says what they want to say. It's a few compromised platforms, but...
Well, those people should be exposed. Like, that's different than basing your indie media show around shit talking other indie media people. Like, if that's an organization that's posing as anonymous, that has direct independent, or the direct, like, mainstream narrative management assistance, who's using, like, I don't know, the also co-opted fucking human rights fucking attorneys and like activists and shit like that too, to put their, you know, boost their name and their reach, that should be discussed, I think. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, you're right. You're right. And we do see it on like on Twitter and stuff. They're being called out for their actions, but the thing is, like, they forward a message to the big media, and the media still writes about it, and you get like what, 10,000s of shares. And okay, well, the example of the Elon Musk thing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, that's why we need to keep exposing it, because people are gonna, you know, fall for it. Like, I mean, I think I said this last night, but everything's like jumbling together at this point. So, but you know, last summer when YZ came out with that George Floyd video, it's like the amount of people that came up to me like, "Hey, Corey, remember when you were telling me about Anonymous? Yo, I found them. This is like Anonymous official." I'm like, hold on. It's got central in their name and official in their bio, and you think that that's not an op?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell you, my friend.
I said before, that's pretty much calling yourself the bullseye. Like, yeah, hit us here and you kill all, right? So, yeah. No, that's not going to happen. No, that's just not it.
Yeah. I mean, if Uranon Central, the official Anonymous, wants to take credit for every illegal thing done by Anonymous, then be my guest.
Please do.
Yeah, I see it. There are plenty of activists who think like that. They think this is fine. We need these people because, yeah, they're pretty much keeping us safe doing this, right? They're doing it all. They're calling the shots. Like
yeah,
you have like
they're official.
Yeah, they're official. They organize everything.
Shit.
Yeah, they literally.
They did it all. They did all of it. Jeremy Hammond was wrongly imprisoned. He needs that time back. Somebody from that account needs to go do it.
Yeah, so shout out to your Alone Central for launching 40 million cyber attacks against Ecuador.
Right? Right? Shout out to your Alone Central for Op Israel.
Yeah.
Yep. Shout out to Uranon Central for the low orbit iron cannon.
Yeah, for pretty much destroying MasterCard, PayPal, and all these websites. Yeah, who needed those anyway? I mean, thanks.
Thanks for that, folks.
Every time the Scientology website goes down, Uranon Central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You heard it there first.
Yeah.
They're the real Anonymous.
Yeah. So
keep that energy, bro. Keep that energy.
Suffering from chronic keep that energy syndrome.
Oh yeah, and also I also want to quickly mention a much forgotten attack against the biggest epilepsy forum in the early 2000s,
Oh, right.
causing mass epilepsy attacks all over the USA. Thanks,
Right.
you're not central.
I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it, right? So there is it's a 50-50 thing. Yeah, we don't want to be centralized at all, but like, yeah, apparently they're behind everything. So yeah. We just do shows and satire. That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Got some love from Shadow Band Refugee, Climate Rebel, and Jin Do over on the Rockfin. Good looking out, y'all. Some love for Deepa. 'Cause
Yeah.
how could you not?
Yeah.
Oh, I just looked at the YouTube chat too. Tender Lungs brought up oh my god. Tender Lungs brought up a good point. He said, people really need to start working with gang leaders to help get change. I'm telling you, the 90s was almost there and they killed it. That's why they killed Bach. Facts.
Yeah.
Okay. You need
That's
to
one of
ask.
the reasons why they killed Fred Hampton, because in his Rainbow Coalition that involved what were they called, the Young Lords or something like that, which was a Puerto Rican gang, and I mean, yeah, like there are like gangs out there too that get fucking more involved in their local communities than politicians.
And that's
Like,
the point. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's what the Panthers were trying to do, was provide an alternative to that.
Mm-hmm.
I like, fuck, dude. There was a court, and this is what I bet Tenderlungs is gonna crack the fuck up when I say this shit. But there was a horny ass hip hop video in like '91, I think. That was the "We're All in the Same Gang" video.
Oh God,
You were not around for that, Jones. But
I wasn't around and I don't remember it. But judging by what just came out of your mouth, I already know where it's going.
Let's see if I can find it.
Oh my God.
But I mean, what he's saying though is right, because there were like sit downs all over the country with different gang leaders, and some of that was instigated and sort of brokered through hip hop. The problem was gangster rap is a fucking psyop.
Yeah, it got co-opted.
And fucking like that whole genre of music was driven by an agenda that we saw as a companion piece to the '94 crime bill, to fucking the initial explosion of the drug war when the CIA got to drop literal fucking helicopters full of cocaine down in the fucking poor black, brown, and white neighborhoods all over the country.
Yeah, modern gangster rap is never gonna advocate for something like what. Oh my God! Wow, I'm running on fumes right now. What more gangs than people think do, which is help out in their communities, fucking literally empowering homeless people too. It's like, oh, and I didn't even get to empowering that. Like, yeah. And I mean, that goes back to all this stuff with X and Keith and the Freedom Camp in Santa Cruz and Food Not Bombs, trying to provide food for people, literally getting put on a fucking terrorist watch list for feeding people. Imagine that. So, like, you can put that into the context of political prisoners as well, where, like, there's so much shit that unhoused have to deal with at the hands of the cops. Like, you know, fucking... like what happened at Echo Park Lake. They literally had a community garden, they had a kitchen, they had showers, they had bathrooms, and all that shit was completely swept away and destroyed, while 180 activists and 9 journalists were arrested after the previous night, in which they had like a 6-hour-long standoff with activists in the middle of the night. So it's like, this is the shit that we're dealing with.
And I'm looking in the
That's a little rant there.
I'm looking in the chat at the YouTube chat, and Tenderlungs is shouting out Herm Lewis, and Herm Lewis is fucking legend, dude. Absolute legend. If you're watching right now, you never heard of Herm Lewis. When we're done with the broadcast, go on a music service and type in Ghetto Spokesman.
Yeah.
Learn something today. Shout out to Herm.
Okay.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so about working with the whole gang culture and stuff. Yeah, I don't know much about that, but like it's completely different in the USA as it is in here, I guess. But yeah,
I mean, yeah, I'd imagine.
yeah. You don't really
Well,
have
and
such
there's
things.
people,
But
like the problem, I guess, is that like you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. Like, you can't turn a gangbanger into anything but a societally acceptable kind of criminal, which is why there's so many like gang outreach programs that go straight into like just the dirtiest kinds of capitalism. And
Oh
there
yeah.
gotta be a different way to approach that situation other than like taking somebody out of a hardcore winner take all fucking I have a limited group of people that I can trust and even a smaller group of people that I actually trust, and I'm really just in it to like get me and mine the fuck up out of here into that exact same situation, except for now there's a whole bunch of different like ridiculous rules that add on top of it. Yeah, dude, it's just dumb. It is. And it's either that or it's fucking sports. And sports can't be the fucking cure-all for every inner city fucking problem. It can't.
No.
Like, it can't, dude. The amount of people that actually get accepted to college to play sports, ridiculously small. And then on top of that, your ability to turn pro or get involved on a level where you're making enough to survive, way smaller.
Even fucking small. I mean, you can't all destroy your brains playing pro football, okay?
Right. Getting that concussion disorder shouldn't be the end goal for a fucking youth outreach program. That's all I'm saying. I don't even know how we got.
I mean, I don't know what other topics we have left, but I'm probably gonna hop off in the next 5 minutes or so here. So
we did 86 minutes again. It was supposed to be like a super short show, just to have Deepa give it.
If we're under
is.
2 hours, it's a super short show.
We're supposed to be like
come on now,
5.5 to 6 hours, right, on average.
Christ, where did we end up going last night?
like 5 hours,
The fuck, dude.
and then we were in the call for another 5 hours after that.
I had to fucking get off. I didn't even get to sleep till like 6. I just had too much other shit to do.
Same. But I actually had coffee today, so
Did
I'm
you?
like up. Yeah.
Lori Jones?
Well,
I know.
I have to be honest, when I got like on these shows and in these calls, I'm like always multitasking, otherwise it becomes impossible to do it. Like,
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Like-
no, me too.
Yeah.
like 5 things at the
we're
same
all
time.
pretty open about that.
Yeah. Like I'm reading all this stuff. Like when I'm like some listeners might think like, yeah, why is this guy like silent? I'm just like reading like a text the whole time. Like because yeah, like, you just can't do it otherwise. You can't do 10 hours of your day each day without doing anything else. Like it's impossible. So
Yeah, we
have to-
literally got. I think about half of the past. Well, not half of the past 24 hours have been spent have been spent on or in a meeting with ABB in some capacity. So
yeah. Yeah, well, this is also how X would have wanted it, how he would have organized his defense. So we're just sticking to it. I mean, I know he wants
Yeah.
it. He expects us to like.
Yeah. And follow free Commander X _ on Twitter for updates. And if you unfortunately have a Fed book, we have a Spanish page as well at Free Commander X on Facebook. Yeah. Si tienes una Fed book, tenemos una página que se llama @Free Commander X on Facebook.
Yeah. And if you're not there, just don't go there. Fuck Facebook. But if you're there, then
Please.
And if anybody knows a gigantic Instagram influencer that would like to donate their account to the Free Commander X campaign, let us know.
Yeah. Well,
And if anyone's in contact with any of the people that X fucked with during the Ferguson uprising, send them our way.
oh yeah.
Love to fucking talk to those guys.
Me too. I would. That's one of the reasons why I actually started paying even more attention to Anonymous. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's a big impact in the USA.
Yeah. Should we give the PSA or?
Yeah, give the PSA.
All right, guys. Free Commander X, free Julian Assange, free Mumia, free Stand with Craig Murray, free him too. Reality Winner is out. Not really free, but out. Free them all. Down with this whole fucking empire. And Anonymous PSA, make sure to spam neuter your pets and politicians and AK's favorite, the lobbyists. Do 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 do.